What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time with a lore video about none other than Patriarch the Black. Patriarch is a very interesting character in Divinity lore, so we simultaneously know quite a bit about him and almost nothing at the same time. What I mean by that is that we do get to talk to him in two different games, and while he does explain some things to us, they deliberately don't let us ask the questions one might like to ask a giant ancient dragon, despite Patriarch being nonetheless described as incredibly affable to most people. So, first and foremost, Patriarch is an incredibly old dragon. He was very likely one of the first, if not the first, dragons to ever be created, and he's pretty much one of the last true dragons in the current history of Rivellon, which is like 60 years after Divinity Original Sin 2, where we get to talk to him in Divinity 2. Now, the first fact about Patriarch I want to bring up is that Patriarch is obviously not his real name. He is called Patriarch because, one, again, he's considered the oldest of his race. Even if he wasn't the first, he's considered, even by other dragons, it would seem to be the oldest now. And the second part is that saying his true name out loud on Rivellon, according to the Patriarch himself, is a spell of creation and would spawn unheard of species as well as change the landscape around the person who said it. Now, the first time we actually get to talk to the Patriarch in the series is in Divine Divinity as the protagonist of that game, who of course canonically turns out to be Lucian. After Lucian ascends to Divinity in that game, the Patriarch can be encountered in the desert of Youthful Gore, where Lucian, if he doesn't have the skill points, can speak to the Patriarch and essentially trick him into teaching Lucian the spirit form that he needs to get across the lake as part of the game. Now, from a gameplay perspective, this is necessary because it's possible to be at a point in the game here where you don't have the skill points to learn the ability spirit form yourself, and you have to have it to progress the game. So the Patriarch there, functionally, as a ways to teach you that skill to continue the game without actually having any skill points. Now, unfortunately, this conversation doesn't really yield all that much. Basically, it's just Lucian kind of goading him and saying that, basically asking him to, prove that he knows all this stuff, and essentially tricking him into, again, teaching Lucian's spirit form. So, while the encounter itself is cool because, it's a dragon, it's one of the only actual dragons you encounter in that game, the rest are just tiny drakes. Unfortunately, we don't get necessarily a lot of lore from it. Now, the second game he appears in is, again, Divinity 2, known as the Dragon Knight Saga, where we can meet him and talk to him quite a bit, actually. One of the biggest things that the Patriarch reveals to us here is the existence of Ouroboros, the dragon god. Now, if you're playing Divinity 2, you'll probably have heard of him up to this point. However, the Patriarch pretty much confirms his existence. And seeing as the Patriarch is one of the first of his kind, and is, literally saying his name is a spell of creation that would spawn people, I think it's fair to take his word for this one. The Patriarch can also help the character of Divinity 2 open the gateway to the Hall of Echoes as part of the main story in that game. Interestingly enough, essentially performing a similar function to his original appearance in Divine Divinity, that is, being a sort of pseudo-gatekeeper to the end of the game. And he also has quite a bit to say on other subjects, such as referring to Damien as insignificant in the grand scale of the cosmos, however, incredibly important to the fate of mankind as a whole. He can also explain that he refused to open the way to the Hall of Echoes for Damien himself, but he did, as well as he will do for you, grant that access to none other than Maxos, the wizard that we have heard so much about in Divinity 2. As well as explaining that while he could basically single-handedly wipe out the Dragon Slayer order that has decimated his kind, he simply doesn't feel that it is his place to do so. But he can't help but hate them for their blind motive of destroying everything that is dragons. Now, if you've played Divinity 2, you might notice that Damien's army in that game actually uses a form of dragons. And you can ask the Patriarch about this. You can be like, what's that all about? And the Patriarch will explain that those beasts are no longer truly dragons. They've been captured and basically stripped of their will, their essence, everything that makes them be what a dragon would normally be, to the point where the Patriarch doesn't even refer to them as dragons anymore and asks you to just put them down because it would be a mercy. And lastly, in this video, you should be able to see that the Patriarch has both of his eyes. However, in Divinity 2, we are after an artifact at one point in the game known as the Eye of the Patriarch, which, while being named after the Patriarch, obviously isn't his actual eye. It is an artifact that is capable of releasing huge bursts of energy that will wipe out anything in the immediate vicinity, however. Although what its exact connection with the Patriarch is anyone's guess. Now, as you've probably noticed here, I've said a lot about what the Patriarch tells you, but not much about the Patriarch himself beyond what lore the Patriarch can give our characters. Because that's pretty much all there is on Patriarch the Black. He is an incredibly interesting character that I hope they expand lore on in the future, because it would be very easy to do so. And moreover, he's just a really awesome dragon. There you go, guys. There is everything that I could muster up on Patriarch the Black of the Divinity series. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. I hope you stick around. But as always, thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.